someone who's gone from a good score to an excellent score. We want to talk about what does it take to get there? How do you plan for it? What mental strengths do you need? How do you leverage data? And then how do you ensure you close the loop and really say, okay, I know um, I, I I am there and I should go take the test. I've about 30 minutes planned, more or less, and planned Q and A's. And then once those Q and A's are done, we'll take on your questions. But keep your questions coming, and if those are relevant to our discussion, then we'll take them right then and there. So Sanidhya, first of all, welcome to the session, and why don't you start with a brief introduction?
So hello everyone, I'm Sanniddhy. I did commerce with maths in grade 11th and 12th. After that, I went on to pursue English honors from Delhi University. And then during COVID, there was a sudden shift in my perspective towards what I want to do. So I thought of pursuing management, and therefore that led me to the GMAT exam, which we give to study abroad. So yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So let's start with why the GMAT. I mean, you've someone who didn't graduate very long back. This is 2022. So why the GMAT? What's your goal, or what was your goal then?
So I think while we are in college, the reason behind most of every student's decisions is based on what people around you tell you. So you don't really have that maturity level to decide everything
Mhm.
yourself. You are easily influenced by what people tell you, right?
Mhm.
So when I started looking into management, as in marketing, finance, and everything. So that
Mhm.
sounded pretty interesting to me. And every student starts dreaming of going to the best institute to pursue an MBA, right? Without knowing what it takes really to get there. So I researched a bit about that, and I think GMAT is the most prominent exam if you want to go to any B school abroad. So decided to first get over with GMAT and then work on my profile and everything else, because I think it's valid for maybe 4 or 5 years, right? So I thought if
About
I'm in a
5 years, yeah.
study, yeah, if I'm in a study mood, then I should first get over with this and then work on my profile and apply abroad.
So focus on one thing at a time, excel at whatever you're doing, and then essentially make sure that things take shape on their own. All right. So that's it. So you took the GMAT twice before joining the GMAT. Your second attempt was your first serious attempt, your first healthy attempt, because that also played a role in your first real attempt. So you got a 720. So tell us about the preparation. During that attempt, and how did you go about doing it? What was good? What worked? What didn't work?
So for my first serious attempt, I took a course from Time, wherein I got the recorded video lessons from Time, the study material from Time, and the official guides. So basically, I used only these three sources. I used to take lectures online from those sessions. I don't think I made notes in my first serious attempt, because I thought I'm working on it for 3 months and be able to recall most of it without noting everything down. And I used to then practice questions from the Time booklet and the official guide. And I also gave 2 free mocks from the MBA.com website. Yeah, so I was scoring around 730 in those mocks, and yeah, expecting a score of 740 and above in my attempt.
Got it. And you got a 720, as I said, Q50 V38. Um, and so what made you reattempt? Because I'm sure people around you must have been really happy with this.
Yeah, actually, even a lot of people were happy, and they started pumping me as in it's a great score. You could get into IBs easily and all that.
Mhm.
But I talked to a few people from who are studying abroad. I talked to a few people over here who are from the industry who know what it takes to get there. So what they told me is either you should have a great profile and then
Mhm.
apply with a 720, or
Mhm.
you make a good GMAT score, the spike in your CV, and then apply abroad. So having nothing as in seriously good in my profile, I thought why not get a great score in GMAT, and
Mhm.
make it a spike itself. So that's
And
why,
you may do that professionally as well. So you may have a double spike, but yes, a 720 definitely gets puts you there.
yeah.
Okay.
So based
So
on that, I decided to, go again.
I think one of the things which is really important is that a lot of B schools, a lot of top B schools, they look for something which is you say a spy, I call it a shining light, something that they can really say sell your profile on, and your GMAT score is one of the more controllable ways. I won't say hey, it's easy to get a 780. I won't really say that. It is challenging. It requires hard work. Requires resilience, but I think amongst all the options, if there's one option that's in your control, it's your GMAT score. It's one option that probably will take the least amount of time. It's improving your GMAT score. So I think that definitely is something that I recommend people do it. Not only because it helps you get into a top school, but also because it helps you get a scholarship, which I don't think you've experienced right now, but when you apply, you would, and especially with a Q51 V47 incredible score. So, what made you join EGMAT? I mean, you're already taken a course from time. You done the GMAT twice. You were probably done with the official guide as well.
Yeah, yeah. So while I was researching as to should I even do a course or not for my third attempt, I used to come across the AG Maths ads, and basically the main motivation behind taking a free trial was that EG Math provides a free mock. So I thought, why not before start preparing for my attempt, let's give a mock and see where do I really stand.
Mhm.
So I gave a mock. I took the free trial, and I think that was the factor which really helped me decide as to should I take a course or not. When I went through the trial course, what I saw was that I need structured approach to get to that score. You can't just aimlessly shoot in every direction to get there. Practice everything and all. You need to have that structure in your approach. You need to know what your weak areas are. You need to have that data at your hand. Where you currently stand, in what subsection you are getting what percentile and all that.
Mhm.
So after taking the free trial, that's basically when I decided to go with EGMAT, because one, I really liked that you provide a lot of data on everything, and the next was that the interface was so modern. As in, I've seen in the interface for other institutes as well, they're pretty old school, and you'll know that it's designed around 10-15 years ago. They've not changed a thing. But on EGMAT, I think the interface was great, and yeah, that basically helped me decide to
Yeah.
go for EGMAT.
One of the things which I mean, I'm noticing, I'm looking at your account in parallel is that you had set yourself to a very high score right from the get go. In fact, I'm looking at your PSP. Your score that you set was a 790. So in some ways, you've not achieved that, based on what we are talking about here. Um, so, what made you aim for such a high score? Right? I mean, 760 would have been good enough. Why 790?
Ma'am, actually have been over ambitious since the start, and I thought if I'll aim for 790, and if I really put in that effort required to get a 790, only then would I land somewhere above 740, 750. Because the same thing happened with me in the earlier attempt as well, that I was getting 730 in my mocks and I ended up scoring a 720. So I knew that if you expect a score that high and if you work towards it, you'll be disappointed even if you miss the score from even 10 points. But then you'll definitely land up somewhere nice. That's why I thought let's just start preparing for a 790, have that mindset so that I can get a great score. That's why I put in a 790.
Okay, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I've had this teacher who's no more. He taught us physics, and we kind of debated this. And this is you were talking about school early on before the session. So he's my teacher in physics teacher in 11th, and we debated this piece. So we'll say, should you aim for the stars and land at least on the moon, or should you really have very specific aims and make sure you achieve that? And he was always of the opinion, be very specific, make sure you achieve that. Don't aim for stars, but and hope to land on the moon. But again, I guess if this worked out for you, 790 to 780, you almost got to the stars that way. Perfect quant and an almost perfect verbal. Okay,
No, I think
so
both
so
the approaches are nice. It depends really on what kind of a person you are. I'm not that kind of a person who decides that I have to give 4 hours every day for 3 months, then I'll be giving 4 hours every day for 3 months. I'm the kind of person who'll decide to give in 6 hours every day for 3 months and then land up on giving 4 hours every day. So I know that I don't perform as per what I expect myself to perform. That's why I have to keep an aim usually higher than what I really do.
we didn't miss it by much though.
Yeah, luckily.
Okay, let's start with this. Okay, so you took the mark. You got a actually you had a 740 on that, but then you created the study plan, and where you had a 719 there. And I'm looking at this. So, how critical was this study plan? What did it tell you even before you started studying?
So I think study plan actually plays a role of Google Maps if you want to go somewhere. It will tell you what's your ETA, in how much time will you get over with the
Mm-hmm.
concept. It will tell you when to start the next subsection. It will tell you how much time is left for your concepts. Basically, yeah, it's that. So it helps you put a time limit on each and every subsection before you move on to the next phase, which is focusing on your weak areas. So at the beginning, I think you have to do everything, right? You have to go through the concepts, you have to build a
Yes.
strong base basically. So that helps you navigate through that, the study plan. Yeah.
Okay. Now I want to ask you this question. You are someone who started at a V38. Yes, you improved to a V47, but V38 is still around that 85th, 86th percentile. And yet you went through every concept. I was just looking at your SC course. Um, and which again, I've seen that happen with you. I've seen that happen with a lot of people who get to an extremely high score. They don't leave any stone unturned. So walk me through your mental thought process when you said, okay, I have a V30. I mean, you could have very easily said, I have a V38. I've attempted the GMAT twice. I'm someone who has a background in English literature, right? And so let me start with phase two of learning, which is cementing rather than starting with phase one. So what made you kind of start with the course to begin with, and then what did you learn from the course?
So I think when I started preparing, I found out that the base itself is weak. In SC, I used to forget the grammatical rules. In RC, I used to go with the option that sounded right and not, back it by a reason, a solid reason from the passage. So I decided that for me, verbal was a distinguishing factor in my overall score because I was already good in cons.
Mhm.
So when I decided this, then I thought of identifying what my strength is and what my weaknesses are in the verbal subsections.
Got it.
So after my first mock, I think I got almost all questions right in CR.
Mhm.
I got around maybe 80 percentile in RC, and then I performed poorly in SC.
Got it.
So I beforehand knew that I need to work a lot on SC because I this time I thought I'll make notes and I'll uh, first remember all the grammatical rules. I need to get through with the rules. After that, I'll start applying the meaning based approach so that I don't get stuck in the hard questions wherein the grammatical rules don't play a role anymore in deciding the right answer.
Got it.
So yeah, that was my mindset as to I have to make my base strong. That's why I have to go through each and every concept.
It's
And
9:15.
because I think there was a lot of gap in my second and third attempt, so I had to go through everything. Yeah.
Okay. So what did you learn as you were going through the course?
So
What are your big
basically,
takeaways?
the whole course, or are you talking about verbal?
Just the SC course. Let's talk about just the SC course. You went through the entire SC course. You're someone who'd done the SC before. You'd saw the official guide. But so, in the context of that, what were your big learnings from the course? What did you learn new? What did you get much better at? Um, and then
So
how
I
did that
think,
translate into the score?
yeah, so while doing the SC course, I think noting down the rules, making notes of the SC concepts is very, very important, because you have to go through those concepts those grammatical rules every day in order to, not forget them.
Mm,
And in SC, I think while attempting questions, the quiz questions, or let's say practice questions, you need to make notes for the questions you are attempting wrong. That's very important, because sometimes you know
You mean the
everything.
error log, essentially?
Yeah, the error log. Because sometimes you know everything, but even then you end up attempting questions wrong.
Mm,
So fine, if you don't get to the bottom of it as to what the reason really is,
mm,
then you would never be able to get that almost perfect verbal score.
mm,
So while doing it, I thought, why not just analyze each and every detail in the
mm,
phase one of my preparation? May it be the wrong questions, may it be every answer choice of every question.
mm,
So I decided, let's deep dive into each option and note down as to why I'm rejecting it, why did I mark it correct, where was I wrong. So making notes of everything in the first phase of your preparation is important this way, as in, why are you marking the questions wrong even after knowing all the grammatical rules correctly.
So how would you note this down? Was this an Excel you kept? Is that a Word document? Is that a physical notebook you would write things into?
No,
What was it?
so for the questions, it was an error log, which I think we have a
You
module
downloaded
on.
the EG error log, okay?
Yeah. So that was very, very helpful, because in Excel it's easy to sort the data according to the subsection. So maintaining an Excel error log for the questions and handwritten notes for SC, because every time you can't go back to the video of that concept and then go through it all again. If you have it written down on a piece of paper, then it hardly takes 2 minutes to revise that.
Also, the act of writing it down, when you go and revise it, it takes you back to that point when you wrote it down and why you wrote it down. That I think is
Absolutely,
very, very important.
absolutely.
Against which question did you have this reference? So you even recall that question sometimes. So
Hmm.
that I
Yeah.
think is a really, really critical piece. Very well said. I would say. I actually looked at your SC course. So in SC, the EGMAT SC course is about 94 learning activities, and what we do is we act, even though you get a grade out of 100, but non just a set of numbers, 85, 87. They're very difficult to actually interpret when you have 100 of those numbers, and each number can have a range from 0 to 100. So what we do is we divide your activity grades. So every activity is evaluated, as you know, into 5 different grades. So starting from A minus, B minus, and then we give you a C grade if you perform really, really poorly. And all of these grading is done in a relative fashion, very similar to how the GMAT is, where if you've scored in the top 10% of all students who've done that activity, you get an A grade. If you score between 89th and 50th percent, 89th and 75th, you get an A minus. 74th and 50th, you get a B grade, and then so on and so forth. So you get 5 quantized grades for each of the learning activities, and then those about 90 odd learning activities, we put them into 4 learning levels. So, and when I look at your thing, your in the entire SC course, actually there are 5 learning levels because SC is a longer course. Your grades were either A, which means you were in the top 5 percentile of all people who attempted the course, or A minus, which is the next 10 percentile. So that, I mean, the error log truly helped you improve from one question to the other, or from one learning activity to the other. So I think that was phenomenal that way. So let's start with CR. Tell me about your CR preparation. So how did the pre-thinking approach help you?
So I think CR was already my strong point, So in CR, I'll tell you a trick which I use. I don't know if it's suitable for everyone or not, but it works for me. So when I read a question statement, so I basically apply the meaning based approach, and without going to the options, I try to question that statement. I think of myself as an advocate for that, and I try to oppose that statement as
Mhm.
to how I can oppose it without having loopholes. So after then I go on to the options, and of course that's the meaning based approach, that you first identify how will you defy it and then go to the options and see the closest option. So in most of the questions, what you'll notice it that the pre-thought assumption you've made, that will definitely match to one or the other option. But in the very very hard level questions, either it's going to be that case, or you are going to find an answer which might not be exactly similar to what you thought, but it would be somewhat on the same lines. So you go for the one which has the least loopholes and just opposes that question statement correctly or strengthens that, for instance.
So you've actually taken the pre-thinking approach, the falsification question, and made it your own, which is good, because when you make it your own, you're able to apply it better. That's wonderful.
Absolutely.
The Yeah, the second thing which what I really see is, if you, what you said is, if you do it right, you'd most likely get the most obvious way to break an argument, because that's what you're trying to do. And usually the most obvious way to break an argument is what you see in the answer choices as well. But even if you don't get it, the if you understand the logic of how to break it, you may see something which also breaks it, as long as you understand what you're reading. That's very important, which is where the
Yeah.
meaning based approach comes in. So
Yeah,
that's
of course,
that's
you need to fully know what the question statement actually means. You need to read between the lines to get to the bottom of it.
Mm, to get to the bottom of it. And again, you did get to the bottom of it because you reached the top 1 percentile of students in CR. Okay, so let's talk about Q50 to Q51. You were very good in quant. Again, you did all the files. What motivated you to do that? And then how did the pace architecture help you in that?
So when I came to quants, I knew that I must be lacking in hardly one or two areas out of the various concepts you have in quants. So I think pace is actually um, has a great role in me getting to that score, because pay saved me around 60 hours. So if I convert it to 4 hours a day, that's around 15 days, which
15
I
days.
could then contribute to my verbal practice. So while going through the cons subsections, there's a pre-quiz for before every concept, right? So that was very helpful for me in cons, because if I performed a 10 on 10 on a pre-quiz, I knew that I can easily skip this concept, and this is not something where I will go wrong during the exam.
Hmm.
So I think in most of the concepts, I was able to get through the pre-quiz with 100% accuracy, which led me to believe that most probably I was making silly mistakes in the hard questions, and specifically data sufficiency questions. So knowing that I'm scoring 10 on 10 in a pre-quiz reasserts to me that I'm good in that concept. And as soon as I see a question of that concept in the exam, I know that it's my strength and I can do it pretty well. So that's how the pre-quiz and the pace helps you.
Okay, that makes sense. So for those of you who don't know PACE, it's actually every GMAT course, and if you look at the free trial, you'll see it is divided into modules, and activities are grouped within a module. So some modules have 10 activities, others may have 5, some may have 12 or 15. And in each module, we have a couple of diagnostics. And based on how you perform, the course actually either lengthens or shortens itself. And this is where Sanniddhy uh, actually saved 60 hours over there. And if you are someone who's trying to get a Q49 or a Q50, it ensures that you focus on just those areas that are your weakness. Okay. We'll talk about this one question. I think it's time management on the verbal side of the exam. Rashmi, if you can share that here, please. Yeah. So let's talk about timing. Was timing a concern for you on verbal side?
So timing wasn't a concern for me because see, now most of the people, what they do is they'll
Mm,
try to rush through, let's say, let's talk about RC. They'll try to rush through the passage in
mm,
order to, finish those questions in the required time frame.
yes.
But what they don't realize it that if you spend a little extra time on understanding the passage well, then
Mm.
you end up spending less time on the questions because then you're well equipped to answer them. You don't usually get confused between two options. So I rushing through the RC didn't help me much. I
Mm.
don't know whether it's with everyone or not.
And you actually mentioned a really important point. People don't have timing issues I mean, because they read slowly. People have timing issues because they try and rush through the content without comprehending it. And because of that, they do the back and forth because they don't know which answer choice fits. You
Absolutely.
try avoid you avoid doing that back and forth, and your timing problems will be fixed. So and it's very counterintuitive, but the key to finishing the verbal section fast is reading slowly and comprehending fully. You do those, and timing won't be an issue. The GMAT's not a test of speed. Let me be very clear.
No, not
It,
at all.
it, it's actually a test of comprehension and decision making. Okay, we talked about verbal, we talked about quant. Let's talk about data. How did you use data to make sure you refined and you improved to that Q51 V47?
So basically, data is literally everything, right from the first mock to your subsection percentiles to your post quiz analysis to maybe your further practice mocks to your practice questions to your ability quizzes, or you have the chart of the three quizzes we have to give in the cementing phase.
Cementing,
So
yeah, three cementing, three medium and hard.
yeah, so getting to know whether you are able to clear that cutoff with a margin or not, or you're
Mm,
barely making it. I mean, data is basically everything. You need to, coming to the basic point that you need to know where you stand in which subsection and in which subsection do you need to work upon. So basically, data is everything. And it's actually the best part of EGMAT.
we pride ourselves in actually presenting relevant data to students so that our goal is your decision making should be simple, and you should be confident with regards to when you're done with the subsection, or, or when you need to put in more effort. You should have a reason for that, because in the end it's spending time that's most challenging, and you have to justify spending time. Why? Because more often than not you've got to take time out of other things you could be doing. And when you have data to back your decisions, then you're much more certain about why you're doing this. You're able to explain it not just to yourself but also to others. All right, so let's go towards the exam day experience overall, and then I'd go towards that one question that we asked on the LinkedIn poll over here. Okay, how was your exam day experience? What did you do? How did you wake up? Which side did you wake up on? How many hours did you sleep? Let's talk about everything.
So usually my approach is that before one day before the exam, I chill out, I stop studying, I don't revise anything. I finish my revisions uh, the day before the exam.
Mhm.
So just one day before the exam, I'm watching movies, having snacks, and just having fun because that helps me get in and out of that nervous zone which you are in before the exam. So on the exam day, I think even if your exam is scheduled in the afternoon, of course you need to give mocks during the time you've booked so that your brain automatically starts being active during that time.
Which is on, yes.
Yeah. So you need to have that, you need to be in that schedule around 15 days before the exam, at least.
It's
And
9:30.
on the exam day, I woke up around 9 a.m. My exam was around 12 o'clock, maybe.
Mhm.
So I aim to reach at my center half an hour before the exam, the reporting time, sorry. And I wasn't so nervous because I chilled out a day before, and it was like just give it and get over with it. Because when you study a lot, you there, of course you get nervous. I got nervous a week before that, but then I that phase went by and I was just chill. I drove myself to the center and gave the exam in a chill mode. Now tea works for me well, so I took tea in in my flask. So
Got it.
during the break, I took a cup of tea for myself because that gets me going more than coffee or, let's say, Red Bull. So yeah, I took a cup of tea with me in a bottle, and then I was chill. I took some snacks with me, and for me, basically, the exam was only of an hour. I'll tell you why. So when I'm doing cons, I'm in a relaxed mood. So cons isn't basically a part of the exam for me. I just had to get through that 1 hour of verbal. So that's why I chose verbal as my first slot so that I'm giving it with my full energy. And as soon as I got over with verbal, I was like, the exam's over. I just need to go and give quants. Then after that, you have the essay and LR. So yeah, that was my approach to get through with the section you are most worried about, to get over with it first. Now, for some people that won't work. Some people, get tense that their first section didn't go well and all that. But I'm not that kind of a person. I'm like, if it's done, it's done. You need to go move forward. Nothing can be changed.
Is that also what you do during the exam, where you say you kind of, or rather, I'm sure you did that, but how do you ensure that the memory of your prior question doesn't spoil the next one or the current one?
So as soon as I hit submit, of course, those thoughts cripple in your mind, as in, oh, maybe the answer was not B, maybe it was C. What if I marked it correct? So just say to yourself, I mean, what can you do now? Can you go back to the previous question? No, right? What you can do is you can attempt the question which is there in front of you. And just because you were confused in the previous question doesn't mean you mess up the whole exam. I think of the best case scenario that maybe the previous question which I was confused in wasn't a marked question. So you have those a few questions which you aren't marked upon, right? So I just keep on thinking about the best case scenario that okay, luck will work out, and that question was probably not a marked question, and I just move on to the next question.
That's actually a good strategy. I've not heard many people say that. Just really say, okay, if I don't get it, maybe it was an experimental question. Let's not worry about it. Okay, so just according to you, the having the flexibility to go back is a bad thing. If you fill it, shut it, forget it. That's
No,
that kind of a
it's not a
person.
bad thing. I was just acting, based on what I
Within the
have, right?
constraints that you were dealt with,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
you were given,
absolutely,
yes, you're making the
absolutely.
best of the situation.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
Okay, all right, that makes sense.
No, actually,
So
what happened is, I thought I attempted around 4 to 5 questions wrong in verbal. But luckily, those were actually experimental questions because you can't get a V47 with four,
no,
five
you
questions
can't
wrong.
you can't get a V47
You
with
can't.
45.
So manifesting that maybe helped me.
That is true. Yes, maybe it did. And then you had Chai to back you up after your first
Yeah,
section. So
absolutely. Yeah.
okay. Um, let's talk about that question that we asked. So we asked this question: which is the most dominant factor that enables a student to score a 780? And the options were, and people over here who are with us can also really say this. One is meticulous study plans, second is customized prep strategies, third is time management and efficiency, and number four is resilience and winning mindset. So here are the four options. Rashmi, if we can copy and paste them here. Uh, if I copy and paste them, then so we can put those options here, Rashmi, if we can. Um, and why don't people really say, is it study plan, is it prep strategies, is it time management and efficiency, and is it resilience and a winning mindset? Which one contributes the most? And while people choose one of the options, let's kind of take up the questions that we have. Prahlad says, what would you suggest for to beginners who are starting with a score of 500?
Okay, so if someone's scoring 500, most probably they are at fault, in their base preparation. Because if you have your basics right, you'll be able to at least score a 650 or so, or maybe a 680 or so. So if you
Mhm.
have a 500, depending on whether you performed poorly in verbal or quants or maybe both, you need to, if you want a high score, it definitely involves a lot of hard work. You need to get through your basics well. So go through the basic concepts, build a basic understanding. Just forget about giving the exam. Just think of you need to know the basics. So building those basics is important, and I think verbal and quants is something which comes in every examination. It will help you everywhere, wherever you go in life. So
Yeah,
building
not
those
just exam. I think what you said, everywhere, wherever you go in life.
yeah, absolutely. You go to a market, you need to know whether the shopkeeper is duping you or not. They sometimes do that. So it will help you everywhere to communicate with people and have that confidence while talking to people and everywhere basically. So yeah, so if you have a 500, just build upon your concepts well. Forget about the exam right now. Build upon your concepts, find your weaknesses, write
Well,
everything.
yeah, I would say if you were 500, I like that thing of building your concepts over there. I mean, I wouldn't really go to the extent to really say forget about the exam, but first is understand it's be ready for the long haul. So we're going to take someone's case who's probably starting at a 650. Okay, and most people who start at a 650, if you think about the GMAT, it's an exam of about 7 to 8 battles. Now, the difference between someone who's starting at a 650 and someone who's starting at a 500 is those who are starting at a 650 probably need to fight 2 out of those 8 battles. Someone who's starting at a 500 probably need to fight 6 out of those 8 battles. But each of those battles, whether you're talking about the two that a 650 guy has to fight versus the six that a 500 guy has to fight, each of these battles is that's going to be identical more or less. So it's just that you have to fight more battles. So A, be ready for the long haul. B, make sure that you build the foundation. So focus on learning. In fact, if you're starting with the 500, there are lots and lots of people. Most people will say, "Oh man, I'm starting with the 500. Is such a long haul." I would say that's a for you in many words it's an eye opener because truly if you improve to that 700, 730, 740, 760, it's not only about getting a great GMAT score, it's also about filling gaps in your education that you've been living with, which have been probably been hindering your progress all throughout. So you're going to fill those gaps and tell yourself it's about 3.5, 4 months of effort. But at the end of 4 months, you're going to be, if you put in the effort, you're going to be just as good as someone with regards to basic logic, basic reasoning, and reading and comprehending as someone who's gone to a top school. So the GMAT presents an opportunity to you both in terms of giving you a foundation that can put you in a top B school, and also uh, helping you build those skills that will help you a ton of places. So yes, but it's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of resilience, but if you get there, you're going to be the one who has a lot more to gain than someone who's starting at a 650. So it's worth it.
And there's one more thing that people think that it's a straight line graph of going from 500 to a score above, but it's not. It's an upward moving graph. So basically, the amount of effort someone will require to get from a 500 to maybe a 680 would be approximately similar to a person going from a, let's say, 740 to a 780. Because the graph is like this, it won't be as difficult to go from 500 to 700 as it would be from 700 to maybe 790. So just don't convert that difference in your score to the
Don't
real
think linearly is what you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, I always really say convert it, and that's one of the reasons why the study plan is very helpful because it gives you milestones within the study plan, within SCU or within CR or within number properties. You have those activity scores that will tell you you're moving on the right path. You have those cementing scores. So essentially, um, build those milestones and get there, and you're gonna find that you have these victories which continue to help you push forward and move forward overall. So yeah. Mock strategy, let's talk about that. So
Okay, so talking about mocks, I think before the start of your preparation, you need to give a mock firstly to know where you currently stand, right?
mhm.
What's your weak areas? I mean, you should know what the starting point is if you want to go and win a race. So I think when you're in the first half of your preparation, you don't give as many mocks as you give during the end of your preparation because there's a reason to it. While you are basically learning the concepts, you have to focus more on building your concepts rather than building those to get your score to a certain level. So I think when I meant that forget the exam, what I meant was that don't focus on getting a higher score, focus on building that ability. Because if you just focus on the score, you would somewhere forget up to build that ability to
Yes,
get.
yes.
You will just start dreaming of getting there somehow. So you don't have
And then
to.
you'll continue to you'll take mocks and
Yeah,
that you'll be disappointed.
yeah, absolutely. So get your base strong first.
Mhm.
Then
Yeah,
you
I meant forget the exam means don't worry about taking the test. You're too far off. But yeah.
Yeah. So first build your base. Then mocks are basically just a test of how your base, I mean how strong your base is, and it'll tell you where are there weaknesses in your subsections. Or let's say, if for example I gave a mock after preparing and I got a 690 in a mock. So after getting a 690 and preparing so hard, and the irony is before preparing I got a 740. After doing the concepts, I'm getting a 690. So I clearly knew that concepts, it's not because of the concept. So I sat down and found out that the mindset with which I'm sitting in the exam is also important. So that's when I decided to change my mindset when I'm sitting for the exam. So probably I was not in a good mood that day, or maybe I was doubtful of myself after doing the concepts. I was conscious as to this would be the decider of what score would I get in the real exam. So yeah, mocks are basically the checkpoints where you revisit your strengths and weaknesses, you work upon them, you strengthen them, and then you move on to finding more weaknesses, or let's say more strengths.
So uh, I'd say it slightly differently. Your mocks are essentially an assessment of your how you perform when you're thrown a test in an integrated manner. That's essentially all they are. A lot of people think mocks build ability. Mocks don't build ability. Your ability is built elsewhere, and which is where essentially your cementing score, your scholinium metrics, if you're an EG matter, they matter way more to us than your mock scores. Why? Because a mock is just one data point. I mean, if you think about the current edition, you get 10 questions in CR over there. In cementing, you have 10 medium, 10 hard, and you take about 7 to 8 cementing quizzes. Most people do that. And so we have an aggregate of those 7 to 8 data points. Now, you may perform slightly better than what that aggregate is, or slightly worse than what that aggregate is. But on any day, that aggregate's way more representative than that one score on the mock. So, so for us, when we look at it, we really say, okay, what a mock represents is how your performance deviates from your true ability when you're given questions with CR, with RC, with SC, when you do quant and verbal together one after the other. And if you can do CR well in isolation, if you can do RC well in isolation, but your scores drop when they come one after the other, then we need to fix that. It's another challenge that we need to overcome, and we fix that through the test readiness phase, which I'm sure you've taken mixed quizzes in Scholarium too. So just a specific number of mocks is not as big a metric as how well you've prepared to perform at your highest level in the actual exam or on a mock test. Because if you do that, if you do a lot of that preparation, you won't need that many mocks. But if you don't do a lot of that preparation, then of course you'll need more mocks to
It's
perform at the highest level.
9:45.
Okay.
And talking
Um,
about how many mocks, I
yeah.
think, for example, my exam is in March, and I have started preparing from January. So I think two mocks in Jan, two in Feb, and around 4 to 5 or maybe 6 mocks in March in the final month. That's how I go about it.
But again, the 4 to 5, those are because you want to get to performing at the highest level. Those are
Hmm.
the performance marks over there for you. All right, let's talk about, we have CR tips. I think we talked about CR. If you want to say something else, uh, when you're stuck in hard questions, what do you do?
So basically, reiterating the fact that there is only one correct answer to it. Knowing that, because if you get confused between two options, you are too busy deciding what according to you sounds right. So just remind yourself that out of these two options, one does have a specific reason to be rejected. So you just
And
have to
and one
only,
and that one is 100% wrong.
yeah, that is 100% wrong. I mean, there won't be a doubt in that. You just
Yes.
have to find a specific hard reason to basically reject one out of those two options. So
And,
that
and
really helps.
and I would also really say that that reason is there in the argument itself. If you're not able to find it, it's because you didn't read it properly.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not that it's your prior knowledge or anything. Okay, we're going to talk about that question. So four options: um, meticulous study plan, customized prep strategies, time management and efficiency, and resilience and winning mindset. What do you think it is?
So for me, I think it's number four. Actually, all are important, but for me, resilience and the winning mindset works because if I have that, then I automatically work towards all the other options. I automatically am motivated to change my approach, have a study plan, and all that. But I think it's the basic thing to have that winning mindset, not doubting yourself. And of course, resilience to, actually work upon that and not just daydream about a great score. So when you decide that you have to work towards it, then you'll come upon the issue of making a study plan and changing your approach if it's not working. So that automatically follows after that.
Absolutely. I think, as you rightly said, all are important, but if you have the resilience and winning mindset, only then, even if you had a meticulous study plan, you would execute on it. Okay. Um, and one other question: how do you deal with careless mistakes? I think that's the last question that we have
So careless mistakes during the exam,
during the
or
mocks.
oh, sorry, during the mocks.
Let's
Yeah.
talk about it during the final phase of your preparation. What did you do about them? Because clearly you didn't have a lot of careless mistakes on the test.
So I was making a lot of careless mistakes in data sufficiency questions because they are a bit tricky. Um, so I used to make silly mistakes. There was no conceptual gaps that I know when I analyzed my quizzes and everything. So what I used to do in verbal as well as quants is as soon as I pressed submit to save or whatever it is to the next, as soon as I moved to the next question, I just took hardly a second to remind me that okay, focus and no silly mistakes. So because you make silly mistakes when you lose sight of your weakness, that you do make silly mistakes. As soon as you are just going with the flow and attempting questions, you end up making silly mistakes, right? So after each and every question, as soon as I press saved and continue, I said focus and no silly mistakes to myself, so that when I'm solving that, I'm focusing on each and every number or calculation I'm doing on paper. So
Okay.
that helped me, yeah.
Okay. How can one deal with a busy work schedule and while preparing for the GMAT? I think I'm probably a bit more qualified to take that. I think one of the biggest things you have to do is define a time slot to study and make sure that the time slot is not when your brain's taxed, because studying for the GMAT means learning new things. You want your brain to have that capacity to absorb new information, and so if your brain's taxed, so if you're gonna study after a day of work, make sure there's a break in between, make sure you go to the gym in between, so their brain's ready to absorb information. If sleeping for an hour works for you before you wake up and study for a couple of hours, do that. I've seen a lot of people actually studying in the morning. They study, they wake up, they put in 2 to 3 hours in the morning. Um, it's just what works for you, what your schedule allows is really important. But I think the key thing is have that one time slot so that you don't have to make a decision towards, okay, I have to study now. That's absolutely critical for everyone. Okay. Watch a couple of other video interviews where we talk about working professionals who have really busy schedules. If you Google GMAT preparation working professionals, you're going to see a bunch of interviews that we've conducted over there as well. But I think the key principles are build a time slot, keep working on it. In fact, one thing that I recommend people is even before you start preparing, so when you start preparing, first of all, start with an area of your strength. Why? Because if you're getting back into studying after a very long time, then you want to start with your strength. You don't want your studying to be really taxing right in the first week, second week, if you overall. So start with an area of your strength. If you like verbal more than quant, start with verbal. If you like quant more than verbal, start with quant. That way, you while you're getting your time set, you you also build momentum because you're learning and you're getting those victories there. So do that, and then once you get into groove, then life is going to get a lot easier. And yes, if you like this video, if you like some of the inputs that you've gotten, then do like and share this video. Connect with me on LinkedIn to actually know more, to stay in touch with what's going on in the MBA world as well. Okay. I think that is our last question. I want to thank you, Sanniddhy, for for the inputs that you put in, for the effort that you put in to get to this wonderful score, and to answer all the questions that we had. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of the evening.
Thank you, Rajat. Actually, because of you, I'm sitting here and giving this interview. So thank you, thank to you, and the whole EGMAT team for designing such an amazing product.
Well, thank you very much. I think it's much more the team than myself. They are the ones who put in all the hard work. People like Payal, Rashmi, Rida, Ashish and Shweta and others. They put in all that effort to build these wonderful products, as well as our tech team overall. So yes, this victory is theirs. They actually are really happy when you first informed us about your score.
Must be,
Yep.
must be.
All right. Thank you very much, guys.